Good afternoon. Here we are with video 5, and in this video we'll be looking at two things. We'll take simple cash flow and move it to the future, and we'll take future cash flow and bring it back to the present. So these are the most fundamental steps that we can take. As I begin, we'll start by looking at a present amount, and we'll take it to the future, and we'll do that step by step, and then we'll look at the general formula. And we will look at the notation that the book has, and we'll take that notation and convert that notation to the notation that the spreadsheet, our Google Sheets, uses, so that you can follow that along as well. So you should be able to read the book and follow along with the notation in the book and see how that translates into the notation on the Google Sheet. So I've posted this sheet as well on the classroom stream, and the name of it is FV, and that's for future value. I also find some present values as well, but that's the name of it, FV, future for future value. Let's get right to it. Let me see which one of these I want to show you. There we go. In this problem, we have an annual interest rate of 12% and a single deposit of $100. Now, I'll begin here by going through the steps that we've looked at before, we've seen before. What is the value in 1 year? That is 1 year from today, the end of year one. What would be the value of that single deposit? Well, that would be equal to the $100 that we started with times 1 plus the interest rate. $112. How much will we have at the end of the second year? Well, we'll apply the 12% interest, and that's applied to the $112. So this is equal to 112 times 1 plus the interest rate, 125.44. And in the third year, this is equal to 125.44 times 1 plus the interest rate. So we can see that at the end of 3 years, we have $140.49. One thing you might note is that in year two, let's take what we did in year one. So we'll take the year one amount, which was equal to 100 times 1 plus the interest rate. And that part of the that equation gives us $112. And then we took, for year two, we took the year one amount times 1 plus the interest rate. So let's just do that again here, times 1 plus the interest rate. And we get 125.44. In the third year, we could do the same thing. It's equal to 100 times 1 plus the interest rate times 1 plus the interest rate times 1 plus the interest rate. So you can see generally the equation for any number of years in is equal to our initial deposit times 1 plus the interest rate taken to the power of the number of years into the future. For our last value here, let's just apply that equation. This would equal to the initial deposit times 1 plus the interest rate cubed, or 140.49. Very nice. That makes it easy now for us to solve for the future value. What is the value of the $100 in 15 years? Very simple. 100 times 1 plus the interest rate taken to the power of 15. Here's our answer. Now let me talk about something very briefly from a spreadsheet standpoint. You can see that my initial values all had dollar signs, and as I began to do some calculations, these are just numbers. And have no fear in the extra decimal points and all that. This is simply, a formatting, a presentation, a viewing sort of thing, and I can change the format of these cells simply by looking at the formats up here where it says more formats, and I could just pick currency if I wanted to. We can do that. We can do that now. I've got another one here. There are more formats you can go to and select some of those custom formats. I've already established them so they're ready for me, and so I can do that, and I can give it more decimal places if I wish. And I can do the same thing here and set that format. Let's just set it to currency, and that gives me that format there. We'll talk a little bit more about format later. Okay. If there's a, this is a future value question. If there's a cash flow of $20,000 in 20 years from now, what is the economically equivalent amount today? So this would be a single cash flow 20 years in the future, and we want to find the economically equivalent amount today. Well, let's just do a very short equation here, and we'll say P, the present amount, our present sum, is equal to whatever that future amount is times something. And I will say it's times 1 plus the interest taken to the power of negative n. All we need to do, if this is the future amount, is equal to the deposit or the present amount times 1 plus I to the n, then we can just take this 1 plus I to the n to the other side of the equation. It becomes 1 plus I to the negative n, and we can solve, we can move a future amount back to the present. So let's see how we would do this. We have $20,000. What is the economically equivalent amount today? That should be pretty straightforward. So this is equal to $20,000 times 1 plus the interest rate. I have to go back up here a little bit. 1 plus the interest rate taken to the power of negative 20. Let's go back up here and format that to currency. We can see that it's $2,073.34. So if we want to have $20,000 20 years from now, all we need to deposit today is $2,073.34, provided the interest rate is 12%. If the interest rate is something different, of course, we'll get a different answer here. Now, let's talk about economic equivalence for just a moment. $100 today at 12% interest is economically equivalent to $125.44 2 years from now. It's also economically equivalent to $140.49 3 years from now, and it's economically equivalent to $547.36 15 years from now. So again, key concept of economic equivalence, we are simply moving $100 perhaps to 3 years from now and seeing what its value would be there, or 15 years from today and seeing what its value would be there. In a like manner, $20,000 20 years from now is economically equivalent to $2,073.34 today, provided the interest is 12%. Let's look at this next spreadsheet, worksheet, just for a moment here. I'm going to make the font a little larger. So what if we had an initial deposit of $5,000, annual interest? Let's change the interest rate here. Let's make it 8%. What is that, the value of that in 50 years? Again, pretty straightforward, I believe. 5,000 times 1 plus 8% taken to the power of 50. Wow. $5,000 is almost $250,000 in 50 years. We could do that for 75 years, and 100 years, and 200 years. And here's a little tip on absolute cell addresses. I'm going to put a $sign in front of the C and a $sign in front of the 2, so that that reference to cell C2 doesn't change as I drag my formula down. And you can see what the values of those are in the future. And I've made a mistake. Oh, here we go. This C1 also needs to be an absolute cell address. And there we go. Now it should work. If we had 200 years to keep it, we could deposit $5,000 at 8%. 200 years later, the economically equivalent value is it's $24 billion. Pretty attractive. One last thing, notation. Okay, what about this 1 plus I to the n thing? This present amount, or this $5,000 times 1 plus I to the n. Well, it turns out 1 plus I to the n is a very special special equation, right? Special formula. Let's change the font size. And this is in the notation of the textbook is F given P, I% for n periods. F given P, I% in periods. We'll find a future amount given a present amount. So the present amount is the $5,000. And the future amount is what we would find. That's the resultant of our calculation. And we're given an interest rate of I% for n time periods. So that's how what the notation looks like. Let's see how an Excel function would work there. I'm going to go ahead and set the font size a little larger. Let's look at the values that we might get. Let's look at a future value and see of this particular problem. Let's look at the 50-year problem. $5,000, 8%, 50 years. So this would be, we're looking at F given P, 8%, 50 years. If you look at our conversion table, the conversion table I provided for data from translating the book's notation to spreadsheet notation, this is equal to a future value, the FV function, and the arguments are, I'm getting an interesting, there we go. And the arguments are, the first argument is the interest rate, 8%. The second argument is the number of years, 50. And the third argument is the present amount. The present amount is $5,000. And that's giving us the wrong value.